There we go. So thank you everybody for joining us. This is the June 2023 installment of the Microsoft Data Platform Continuity Virtual Group. With me today is Joe Gavin talking about a subject that is near and dear to all of our hearts, at least it should be, called a database backup is useless if you can't record it. So with that, or restore it. With that, I'll turn it over to you. Go for it.
No, thank you, David. Oh, thank you everybody for being here. Yeah, today we just want to talk about why backups are useless if you can't restore it. Now, this conversation, first of all, I'm going to presume that everybody is doing backups. Hopefully, they're getting backed up somewhere, somewhere to another physical location, so they're safe. And we're getting alerts if a backup fails and so on. But the main thing is we don't really know if that backup is good unless we restore it. Now, why would we need to restore? One, fire. They have, as somebody started off as a hardware guy a number of years ago, this would, I could almost smell the burnt semiconductors there. That just looks terrible. There's and for like major catastrophes like this, or even lesser things, right down to possibly, somebody doing a delete without a where clause, could be a range of things that we would need to do a restore. And we really have to know that those restores are good. And the repercussions are: one, lost money. It's and you've got just any downtime is lost money. Hopefully, we don't want any data lost that's lost money. But say if data is lost, we have there's going to be confidence lost in you as the DBA. There's going to be confidence lost in your IT department. It's going to be confidence lost in your company if this was a say client data, and possibly a loss of your job. I've never known of anybody who actually got fired for not having good backups, but I don't. It wouldn't put you in a good position if you were. Now, here's one. I'm going to try to scare you a little bit into why you have to test these backups. But if I don't scare you enough, this is a great video by Grant Fritchie where he basically yells at you for 3 hours and 20 seconds of why you need to test your backups by restoring them, and they're useless to you if you can't restore them. So that one, that's at the URL down at the bottom. I would recommend giving that a look. If nothing else, he's scary and entertaining at the same time. So I enjoy his videos. Now, quick agenda. One, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I just want to review database recovery models, and then we'll look at backup types. And then we'll talk about the key to testing and automating the testing of restores is DBA tools. And then we'll just look at backing up some databases. I'll just show you how I did the backups to make these slides. And then we'll do a manual restore to test a backup. And then our goal is to automate it. And I'll leave you with a script. There'll be a link at the end to my GitHub that will I'll share the script with you. It will to just have one to just quickly do a nightly test restore of your databases. In database recovery models, this is typically it'll be full if it's a production environment, because you're going to want the ability to recover up to an arbitrary point in time. With full, plus transaction log backups are required, and that's what will allow you to restore up to certain points. But we'll see a little example of that coming up. And the other way is simple recovery. This is perfectly appropriate for say a test database or even a production database if that you didn't need to be able to recover, say a little data mart that you may say refresh it overnight, do a backup after that. So you could easily restore to that. And what simple recovery gives you is every time the SQL Server runs a checkpoint, the transaction log is truncated. Whereas with full recovery, if you're not doing log backups, that backup is just going to get, or excuse me, the transaction log will get bigger, 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 bigger. And you'll see that too if somebody restores say for a test database, they'll take a backup of production, restore it, and then start hammering away, working at it. That transaction log will just get bigger and bigger up to the point it's going to fill the drive. So that's a case where you use simple recovery. There is a third one called bulk logged, which it logs most things. I honestly have never used this. I didn't even really bother to put it up there. But these are probably the two you would see. I would guess probably 99% of the time. It's either going to be full or simple recovery. And for our types of backups, the foundation for everything is the full backup. So, as the name implies, it's a backup of the entire database. It's useful for to do a recovery to the point in time that backup, the full backup finished. And as importantly, it's the foundation if we're doing differential and transaction log restores. Without the full, you have no ability to restore anything past that point in time. Just say, for example, if you had a full backup that ran overnight last night, you didn't know that there was a problem with it, and you're doing differential backups and transaction log backups, you think they're restorable. They're not without that full backup. You'd end up having to go back to the prior day, and hopefully that was a good full backup. And we'll see what those other two are here. Transaction log backup, that's a serial backup of everything since the last transaction log backup. And the because where it's a serial backup, that's what gives you the ability to restore to a point in time by telling it to stop at a certain point. And differential backups are different, but from transaction log backups, these are all the changes made since the last full backup. So you can have multiple of those between them. And again, we'll explain it with a little picture. We'll make it'll be much clearer there. It'll make some more sense. And there are some other ones you could do. They're like file group backups, etc. But these are the three main ones you would see. Again, probably about 99% of the time. And it's a good point to talk about recovery point objective and recovery time objective. Recovery point objective, that's the amount of data that the business can afford to lose. And this is essentially how you would time your transaction log backups. In this example here too, we've had just pretending that the business has given us a 2-hour recovery point objective, and we're doing backups every 2 hours during the day. And recovery time objective, this is the time right from the very beginning of the outage, is how long it takes you to get this backup and operational. They say if you had a recovery time objective of say 4 hours, and you had as long as you could do your full differentials using the transaction log backups within that point, you would still meet that RTO. Now this, I think, will explain it better with the picture. This example, and this is what I use to test the restores in generated output file from this. So it's presuming a 2-hour recovery point objective. So here I just do a 12 midnight, take a full backup. Every 2 hours is a transaction log backup, except for noontime, take a differential backup. And then again, start again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then at midnight, just rolls back over and it starts the full backup, log, differential, and so on. Let's say, just for example, if we had a 9 a.m. failure, in this scenario, we could restore full backup, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m., and the 8 a.m. And now at this this way we would lose just an hour of data. So we would be restored and right to an hour before the failure happened at 9. Another example, if we had the same thing, now this is presuming more of a catastrophic failure, where the couldn't do anything with the database, we had to restore it. This is where the differential backups are handy. This, as we said, the full is always the foundation for the other restores. We wouldn't have to worry about the morning's transaction log backups because we've got the differential that encompasses everything from the full backup right up until noontime. And then on top of that, we do the 2 p.m. log, the 4 p.m. log. And again, this would be, we'd be restored to within up to the prior hour of the failure at 5 p.m. And for the automated job, we're going to see a little bit later on. I'm running it at 11 p.m. So this kicks off restore the full, and this is doing it over to another environment. Obviously not overwriting production. So we restore our midnight full. You don't have to worry about our differentials. And same thing, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And we restored that so that we know with certainty that we could, if we had to, we could recover that that database right up until 10 p.m. that night. And this will, and as we'll see going forward, we have we'll have an automated script that will be doing this, and that will help make a little bit more sense of that. But I just want to show that graphic just to get an idea of what we're going to be doing. The key to all this is one of the DBA tools scripts. If you're not familiar with DBA tools, you should be. I think these are just greatest things since sliced bread. Essentially, it's a set of open source scripts that there's over 500 of them. That essentially they're PowerShell scripts that are a command line interface into SQL Server Management Studio. If you've ever really done anything going in, clicking boxes and so on, and you click the script as button, this essentially is calling what does that, the system management objects. This is calling them directly from PowerShell, which gives you a ton of options to basically wrap them the way you want, do alerting, sending log files and so on from it. I became a huge fan of this when I had one where we're building out a new SSIS server and had, I think, about 150 some odd SQL agent jobs that I had to move, and I just stared at it and said, okay, how am I going to get all these over there? I saw there's got to be a DBA tool script for it. Sure enough, I was able to move probably all 150 some odd in maybe 15, 20 minutes with all one line of PowerShell, and I've just become a firm believer. And we're gonna just look at 2 of the 500 scripts here coming up. But I think if you haven't used them and start to, you'll become a believer as well. Now here I use the backup-dba database script. Now, in order to run the test restore, you don't have to back them up this way. It could be, you can use the Hallengren scripts or even the maintenance plan if you want. But as long as you are backing them up. But this is the one I just wanted to introduce DBA tools with this script. And essentially, all this is, you just tell it if you're Unix or Linuxy people, this will all look pretty familiar. You just tell it the SQL instance. That's the server whose databases you're backing up. Tell it I want to run a checksum first. Of course, I want to compress it. And dash create folder is if the folder doesn't exist, just go ahead and create it. And as the path where I'm backing them up to, as I mentioned before, we want them somewhere else. But obviously, just for this demo, you'll notice that machine name is the same for all of them. I did it all on just on one little test machine. And type of backup is full. If we go to the next one, now this is the one I run at midnight. And the next one is the differential I run at 12 noon. This is all going to look just like the one above, with a couple of exceptions. One, I'm telling it, I only want to do it on these 4 databases. So I'm not on all of them. I just have I got something else doing the system databases, but I just want to stick with the users for databases for this presentation. And instead of dash type full, it's dash type diff. In those last 2 lines, by default, full database backup, it gives it the extension .bak. If you're taking a differential backup, gives it the extension of .bak as well, which I find very confusing and very annoying. But it was easy enough to tell it what I wanted to give it for a name, the dash file path, and that's the default without this already is db name _ timestamp. But now the .diff tells it that I want to use that for an extension, and the dash replacement name is basically the one that tells it to do the file path. And if we go down here, these are the transaction log backups that I'm doing every 2 hours except for noontime. And this looks pretty much identical, except for we don't have to do we don't have to tell it the extension to use, just have to tell it type log. And all I did to do these, I set up 3 separate agent jobs. And one thing to point out here, if you try to do it with a type PowerShell, that will work for some things you're doing with PowerShell, but it will not play with DBA tools well at all. Essentially, when you tell it type PowerShell, it's running SQL ps.exe, which I guess essentially is SQL Server's own flavor of PowerShell, I guess you could call it. But in order to make this work, you saved off the PowerShell into three separate PowerShell scripts. And to run it, you tell it type operating system command exec. And the first one calls it just runs PowerShell. Dash file tells it point to this one. Same thing in another job. It points to the differential backups that we schedule to run at noon. And the every 2 hours will be the log backups. But that's the takeaway from that is to some things you may be able to get away with just putting the PowerShell in that little command window. But with any of the DBA tool scripts, it's just not going to play well with it. Now, to do the testing of it, there are we use the backup-dba backup script. This is test-dba last backup. Its job is to do a test restore to the latest point in time, and kind of high-level overview of how this works. This is now running on a test server. Goes over to the source, says, okay, hey, what backups do I need to restore and where are they to bring this up to the latest point in time? And then it goes in, then it does it'll take the first one, restores the backup. You know, by default, it runs a DBCC checkDB against it, which that actually can be turned off. And there are, most of the time you want to do it on your production machine, do the DBCC checks there, but this gives you a very handy way to offload the DBCCs if you have to. And then it drops the restored database that, and this is by default. This also you can turn off as well, and we'll see the switch to do that a little later. And then repeats for the next one, and it's just rinse, lather, repeat. Just keeps looping through till it's done, and then it will spit out the output of the script. And let's see what this looks like coming up here. Oh, first of all, all you need to run it is the DBA tools tool set. It's very easy install, just from a PowerShell prompt as an admin, install desk module DBA tools, and it goes does the rest for you when you have that. And you just need a SQL Server to restore it to that's at the highest version of the one you're going to be testing or higher. In other words, like if you highest one that you're testing, if it's a 2019, as long as you have a 2019 or a 2022, you'll be fine, but you can't restore back from a later one. And now let's just look at manually running it just to see what it does. Again, the syntax is pretty simple. I just tell it, run the script. SQL instance is the SQL Server that has that your whose backups you are testing, and the destination is your test server. And again, too, it's the same machine. I just set up two named instances for the sake of putting this together. And then I pipe it through select object and tell it I want to see every object there, just for the sake of showing you what you can get from it. And here, just as we saw, there's the source of test server that we passed it. This is, for example, of one of the user databases that works on the score for. Says it found the file. It's obviously a very tiny little database, 8.5 meg. The main things we're looking for here are restore result. Is it successful? And if we're doing the DBCCs, we want to see that successful as well. And it tells you when it started, when it finished, how long it took, etc. And then down the bottom, we'll see the actual file names that it restored in the times where they were from. In this case here, this was run a little bit earlier in the day, so I just had the midnight full backup, and then 2, 4, and 6 a.m. So I probably ran this about 7 a.m. one morning. So those are the three that are restored, and we know that we are restorable up until that point, up till that point in time at 6 a.m. Now this is something that's this would be good for a one-off. You just wanted to test one, you could just do that manually. But it just made more sense to have something that I could go across my entire environment and do a test restore of all my backups. So I just put this little script together. It's called backup validation. And the requirements I came up with, I wanted to be something that if somebody didn't really know anything about PowerShell, they could manage a list of the servers, whether take them out, add additional servers just by editing a simple text file. And then I wanted all the variables to be at the top, so if somebody would know enough to be able to read the variable, understand what it means, and put the variable they want in there without having to touch any of the actual PowerShell. And of course, it only makes sense to be able to schedule something like this nightly. And then when I don't want to have to go look for an output file. I just want to be able to open up my email, see the email, click on it, and then open up a CSV file and be able to tell within a few seconds if if all my backups are good. And that we will take a look at an example of one with actually a multitude of problems in it. But it will let us step through each of them and be able to see some of the things we hopefully won't see, but may. And the server lists, for this, I just have these two servers I'm working with, the two named instances on one machine. And the file just looks like this simple. I've got first one, second one. If I had any additional servers, they would just be listed here. And now looking at this script, if you're not familiar with PowerShell, this may look a little scary, but it's really pretty straightforward. But we're going to take a little walk through each section. Right on the top are where the variables are. And again, too, I wanted somebody to be able to just pretty much anybody, if they've never seen PowerShell, they'd be able to look at this and say, okay, yeah, destinations we're restoring to, that's my working directory. There's the name of my the file with the server names in it, and so on, and be able to really set this up with very little pain. And coming down below where it says the mail from, that doesn't have to be a valid email. Just SMTP just wants to see essentially something at something dot dot something. So I just, for this, I just chose a backup validation at mycompany.com. The mail to does have to be a valid email address that you're sending it to. This, most cases would be just a distribution list. So it would be DBA at mycompany.com. That will be getting forward to the DBAs. Subject, I just kept it simple: backup validation report. And the mail server, this is presuming that your mail server does not require authentication, which most that are behind a firewall wouldn't. So I don't have to worry about any authenticating here. So this would be anybody who wants to install this could just go in and set these up and not have to touch anything past it. And now coming down to this next section, just to build a list of servers, all that does is get content, says, go read in what's in that text file, populate this variable SQL servers with the list. It just built a little array. And then just to make sure I'm in my working directory, set location, or just that's send as a CD to the working directory. And the next line down, if there's likely an existing file already there, I just want to delete that and start clean. And start dash transcript. That's useful, and we'll see one place where it's very handy. All that's doing is telling it anything that any errors or warnings that the test-DB backups may not produce. But if you were running this from a command line, you would see this captures that in that transcript file. And it's that's handy too. If you have something that's working and all of a sudden it stops, it makes it easier that you don't have to actually just go in and manually run all of this. You should be able to get a fairly good idea of what's not working correctly there. And next part down, this is the meat and potatoes of it. We saw the test-DB last backup. We saw what the instance, destination, and so on. And here I didn't need all of the objects that returned. So here I'm just telling it I want the source server name, the name of the database, size, how long it took to restore it, and most importantly, the restore results. And if I'm doing DBCC checks, I want to see the results of that too, because I want to see that those both succeeded. And that fancy little name and the join on there, etc. The only reason that's in there is by default, if you're putting this in a CSV file, it just puts everything out in this one big, long, wide cell. And I wanted to be able to just read it one line at a time. So that's all it does. That's just really just adding a new line at the end of it. And then I pipe it out to export CSV, so it puts it in a CSV file. And I tell it to, where this is going to be adding to it multiple times, I tell it to append, and that dash no type information just gets rid of this annoying little header that it puts out by default. But that's the meat and potatoes right there. That runs. The next thing I want to do is stop the transcript logging, because I want to send that as an attachment. That's and if I don't, it won't be able to. It's going to be holding that file open. I won't be able to send it. So I stop that. And the attachments are just the output dash out file. That's the output of the test-DB last backup, and the other is our transcript file. And that just says, okay, send these to the email that I specified in the top of it. And that's it for the script. And again, too, I'll share this. This is something you can take and do anything you want with it. Add on to it, take anything off. And this again, too, just like the backups, I run this in an agent job, and I do use a type operating system, and I call PowerShell, and I point it to the backup validation script. And this way I assure that I'm not going to run into any problems with SQL PS and DBA tools not playing well together. I'm sure there are some things you can do there, but I would take a chance. This way here, you pretty much guarantee it's going to work for you. And there's just there's a pointing to the script. Now this is the fun part here. This is the email that the email attachment that you'll see on if you're running it every night. You'll see this every morning. Actually, maybe that's a good point. Are there any questions so far, David?
So far, not any. You're doing a great job covering
Okay.
everything that I've been thinking of.
Okay, great. I will just keep on going then. Cool. This is essentially just how I like to do things. I want, as I know, as any good DBA will tell you, that they will work very, very hard to be lazy. And I don't want to have to do any work to know. I've already done the work. I just want to pop open the email in the morning, pop open this attachment, and be able to look at this file and know if my backups are restorable. With one exception, if we're doing the DBCC checks, first time I saw it, this kind of frightened me. It's like, is this telling me that I don't have a good backup of master? When you back up master on one server and restore it to another, there's essentially, it's even going from VM to VM. There's server VM specific or service specific or machine specific information in there. So that will fail the DBCC check. But that's why if you're offloading your DBCCs and you're doing them over here, it's you would just do at least master on the you would have to do the DBCC checks on there. If you have a need to offload them, I only use this for one in my environment. I had one server that runs probably, there have got to be a heavy amount of users in there, probably 23.5 hours a day. And the DBCC checks were taking, doing index maintenance and the backups and so on. The DBCC checks was taking, I don't know, maybe about 3 hours or so. And during the time of the DBCC checks, they were running into a lot of performance issues. This was for a warehouse management system, and right down to the handheld guys that go around the warehouse scanning this pallet. Okay, we took it from here, moved it here. It was just killing performance there during the time the DBCCs were running. So I just decided to add it to the restore test. So now at least now I know I'm getting the good clean DBCCs. And it's I found it to be an ideal tool for that, but for everything else, I tell it not to run it. But for here, this is what I've done on all 8 of these, or 8 or 10, whatever it is, these 10 databases. I'm doing the DBCC checks on the test server after I've done the restore. So that error is that's still fine. That's just purely informational. But what I want to see, when I look at, I want to see every single one of these fields on both columns, result set and DBCC result. I want to see that, other than the informational one from master, I want to see that say success. We don't have this here. And actually, I think if you were to actually see this, you've got some problems. I wouldn't want to actually see this in the real world. We have these issues because I've intentionally gone in and created them just for the sake of being able to show you. So now let's look at these one at a time. Now this comes down and says, okay, failure. All right, why did it fail? It doesn't actually tell you anything more than it just failed. That's where that transcript log comes in very handy. If you pop that open, you would see something like this. And just reading that, it's saying, okay, that backup file, so that's the 4 p.m. trend log backup can't be read. That's what the service account had permission. So now this is telling me it's already read the full backup, the other in this case, differential backup, and the other transaction log backups that prior to the 4 p.m. If it's saying it can't be reading and it's asking it has permission, so they already know it has permission. In this case, yeah, the file's missing. It was in the reason it's missing is that I just went in and deleted it just to show you this. But this could conceivably happen. Somebody accidentally thought they were copying files over, maybe cut that one instead of cut and paste it instead of copied it. But the problem you have is that file's not going to be there when you need it, where you need it. So this would tell you have a problem before you would actually have a real problem. You would have to go in and figure that out. So that's an example. It doesn't specifically tell you it's not there. And they what does it say? Yeah, it just says it fails testing. And so now this too hasn't. I don't believe it's actually even tried to do any of the restore at all yet. Now this next one for the restore result. Okay, what's this say here? If we open this cell up, this is going to tell us that now this actually tells us the file's not there. Oh, my apologies. I made a mistake on the other one. The first one, that was actually an empty file. The errors, just like most, aren't all that easy to decipher, but it's kind of the key is that you do have a problem and then you have to go in and figure it out. But this one is this one's telling you that the file is empty. Oh no, I was right the first one. That was a missing one. The second one is that you can see here it's tried 4 times to restore it. It says it's empty. Reason it's giving this one, I just replaced that trend log backup with just an empty text file. So we'll see the name and try to read it, but I did some playing around with the hex editor. Some places I could actually do damage and it would still work. Other places it would give me odd errors saying that it couldn't read from the tape. But the takeaway on this is if you see anything other than success, you've got some sort of an issue you have to go figure out. But this would be, this essentially is telling us here that it can't even read the necessary header information it needs. It did try it 4 times, and after that, just says, "No, I quit. I can't do this," and you would have to manually go in and do it. And whoops. And sorry. And then actually there is one down here that for some reason the animation's not working for me. There is, did we hit the, oh no, actually we skipped over one. There is one here. The animation is not working for this one in line 6, and I don't know why it's not working in Zoom, but it was working for me before, but oh well, I could just talk about it. This is we see that the restore results are successful, which is good. But when I ran the DBCC check, it failed. And this failed because I restored a known corrupt instance of that database. But that would go in and if you open that up, that would give you more information on where the corruption is. And you have some corruption you would have to fix at that point. But obviously you would want it. That's something you would want to know about as soon as you possibly could. And that's it for that. And again, that I have, if you were to see one like this in a production environment, there are some issues there. Ideally, this one, every day I expect to see successful restore results, successful DBCCs if I'm running them. And other than just the warning for Baster, and I frankly have not seen one yet in my environment, and I hope not to. I hope I'm doing everything else right. But now this, after this runs, like I'm not just assuming I have good backups. This one, I know if I have success there, I know I do have good backups. So that's it for the going through that log file. And a few things we mentioned earlier, the couple of the defaults are it will restore the database, do the DBCC checks on it, and then drop the database. If you want to customize this a little further, there's a few more switches that you can pass it. These are just the ones that I took out that I thought would be of relevance. We saw the dash database switch. If by default, if you omit dash database or dash exclude database, it will just do all of them. In dash database, I told some others I just want to do just these particular databases. I might have some that are I'm not really concerned with, so I just want to do particular ones. Or if I decide I want to do all the databases except for some, I would just put these after the dash exclude database parameter. And all that you could just put and then you would just put those in comma separated after each of those switches. And if I wanted to ignore the differential backup and restore the full and all the transaction log backups, which may even be a better test because now you're actually reading through each of the transaction logs, transaction log backups. You can use that and tell it to ignore the diffs. Another one is you could choose ignore log backups. This would be, say, if you weren't doing differentials and you were only concerned with bringing it back to the prior full backup, you could tell it to ignore that. But again, by default, that will try to just restore differential backups plus the subsequent transaction log backups. Dash no check, that says don't do the DBCC checks. I actually think this should be no check should probably be the default because I prefer to have them over the DBCCs run over on my production machine. But that's if you don't want to do it, just dash no check. Or if you wanted to leave the database up there for any reason, you might have a reason. Maybe developers need a fresh refresh of a database for whatever reason that they want to leave there for just the day. You could just leave it up with that the dash no drop. But I believe you'd have to have some other logic in there to drop it before this ran, because it would try to restore it as the same name as the existing one, and would fail there. But yeah, I could see some instances where you would that could be pretty handy. As we mentioned, the name, the default, it's DBA tools dash test restore dash database name is the default. If you that way there, when I first started playing with this, I was petrified. I said, what if this tries to overwrite production? It won't. It will, even if you omitted the dash destination, it would create a database with that database name it's testing with that prefix on there. So you're not if you accidentally did that, I mean, you could end up filling up a drive, but you're not going to overwrite production with it, which was my biggest fear. But you could give that any other name prefix that you want. I've never used that. I think that the one that they pick works just fine for me. And another one here is dash verify only. I actually have mine set up. I didn't really have enough time to do all of them, so I do an actual full restore on a rolling basis. But every night I want to run at least a verify only restore. Essentially, will just read the header into the file and to see if that thinks it is restorable. Not as good as actually restoring it, but it's it's something that you may be forced to use to at least have some idea if you've got a good backup. Another thing where this would be handy, say if you were building this out in your environment, and say you were waiting to get enough log space to be, enough disk space to be able to restore the large databases, you could go in and test everything with just this dash verify only switch. And then when you have the space, just go in and get rid of it. I think I actually, when I was started playing with this, I had a test machine with not a whole lot of space. So this let me test out all the logic, and then just go in and just get rid of this one switch at the end. So I found that pretty handy. And again, those are the ones that if you go up to the DBA tools, the dbatools.io, you can get the full list of these switches in addition to the a much deeper explanation of them. But I just picked these out. I thought these may be of interest to other people for this particular process. And this is kind of sidestepping here a little bit. This is something we determined that this would be something very handy to have use an Azure VM that we could start it up, run the validations, and then stop the VM, just so we only have to pay for the storage time and not the compute. Which that's worked out pretty well. Essentially, I have an Azure runbook, and I initially tried to do this all in a runbook, but a runbook will only run for 90 minutes. So that was just too short of a time. So essentially, I have the runbook. This goes in and we'll start the VM. And I think I probably start this, say if you started this, say at 11 p.m. You would probably have give it a few minutes. So say 11:05 p.m. You would start the script to go in and test all your backups. And then once you have an idea of roughly how long that's going to run, and then you have another run book that essentially does this is really identical, except for that last command. Instead of start -azvm, does a stop azvm, and then shuts that down. So then the compute clock stops. So you don't have to pay for it at that time. And this is just an example if you wanted to do that. And this is using the currently supported authentication. There was one that I think is going away at the end of this year, and it's what's the managed. Actually, I'm drawing a blank at the name, but this is the one that will be you could use for the time to come. But again, this is just valid too if you wanted to do that. Just want to give a handy little reference for that. And to summarize, okay, we looked at the different recovery models and common backup types. Saw how to manually run the test-dbls backup script. And then we saw a script to wrap it in another PowerShell script that we can configure and run that across everything in our environment. And the key, if we do get errors, hopefully we don't, and we know everything's good. But if we do, we got a little insight into how we would interpret the errors that be in that output file. And some switches to wanted some further customization on it, and how to start and stop an Azure VM with Azure runbooks. If you haven't used any of the runbooks, that's kind of a good little introduction to it. And that brings us to the end. Any questions pop up?
That is awesome. If anybody has any questions, honestly, throw it in the chat window or just come off mute and ask away. That was great.
Yeah, go ahead, feel free. And I'll leave this slide up for a little bit. If anybody had a question after and want to email me, this email, Twitter, LinkedIn, and the presentation and the scripts are up there in my almost brand spanking new GitHub repo.
Very cool. If anybody's watching this after the fact and not live, feel free, reach out to Joe directly here, reach out to us at the HADR virtual chapter. And honestly, if you have any questions, let us all know. If you have a session you'd like to see, also let us know, because we'd love to create a session to answer your questions. So are there any questions for today? Actually, I'll ask one while we wait here. How often do you normally see database integrity failures with just normal database corruption?
Fortunately, I think I'm just a little bit lucky. I have in the environment I manage, I have never seen them.
Wow.
I'm always suspicious. I think our infrastructure guys are pretty good with maintaining that stuff, even though I'll argue things with them on a number of other areas. on things that they say I'm wrong, I say they're wrong, and sometimes we're both right sometimes, but they do a pretty good job keeping up with storage. It's always almost kind of a rotating thing. Once everything is like, okay, great, we've got all the storage up, let's look at the older stuff and see what we need to replace there. So
That's awesome.
I think that's kind of knock on wood. I think it's that's a lot of diligent checking, plus a lot of luck.
I usually say, once in the life cycle of every big database, you're going to get something. Just a matter of when. Thank you very much. I don't see any questions in here. So if anybody after the fact has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Joe. Let us know. Joe, thank you. Thank you very much. That was really cool. I got to go grab some of those scripts and go get find some time to tinker.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing to play with.
Yeah. Oh, not just play with. I've been looking for scripts to do this, honestly, a bunch of my customers. So I'm gonna grab yours and give credit where credit's due.
Oh yeah, feel free to make that better. I kept it pretty. That was my second run through of it, but it's funny. Maybe a quick story. I had we're debating back and forth. I had our infrastructure guys where they think Veeam backups are the greatest thing in the world. But that whole pausing of IO just frightens me. And they're arguing back and forth that, well, no, we should be doing them all on Veeam because we didn't really have any place offsite until I started backing up to blob storage. So they said, well, no, we should do it over here in Veeam. I'm like, no, we should do it this. I put together a little presentation. I said, okay, this is how I propose when I started building this. This is how I'm going to do it. And basically, I had nobody back up on my side, being the lone DBA. But I had the whole infrastructure team. Well, no, it should be Veeam. I went through all my presentation. I said, but the decision's made, we go with Veeam. I said, that makes, that will now mean, I said, I have more time I said, my boss handed me more development work. I said, that will free up a lot of time for me. I said, and infrastructure will be 100% responsible for all database restores. And the response from the infrastructure manager was, no, like your idea, Joe, give us a yell if you need any help.
But
it just turned and ran.
Any of those backup utilities that focus on the virtual machine level backup with just claim to do the database, some of them work, some of them don't. Real simple. Give me the RTO and RPO of points in time in between when they run their backups and time how long it takes. If it works, great. Most of the time it doesn't. There's only a few tools out there that I trust that can do that properly.
Yeah, I heard the kind of the best little piece of ammunition I ever heard too. If somebody claims that, just say, okay, right now, show me how you restore that to the latest point in time immediately.
Yep, right now. Yeah. Time and get out the timer on the phone and just say go. Yep. By the way, this database is under a 5-minute SLA. Go.
Let's see if you can do it.
Yep. Simple as that. That usually ends a discussion before it really begins right there. It's simple as that.
Yeah, because it's just that there are better ways of doing things, and that's how you should do it.
Yeah, there's exactly 2 backup platforms out there that I trust. I won't market for anybody right here because that's not what this group is for. If anybody has any questions, let me know and I can get you in touch with the right people out there. But bottom line, test it. Test everything. Test your restores, test your validation, do your integrity checks. Everything you need to do to make sure these databases are up and running, the best possible. Because it doesn't matter how fast it's running. If it's down, who cares?
Yeah, yeah, running at 0 miles per hour.
Exactly.
That's what the best thing. I think the best thing I heard for any changes or any sort of like the software changes or testing restores is test. And when you're done with that, test some more.
Yep. It's real simple. I mean, literally. If you haven't tested a backup, I would say within the last month, you're doing it wrong. Ideally, it's automated. You do it nightly or weekly. Yeah,
I've sat there in presentations because I work for a backup vendor, but I won't mention a name. And I've flat out said in customer demos and in presentations that I'm doing that if you are not testing your backups, it does not matter who the backup vendor is, you don't have a backup.
Exactly. All you have is a glorified space heater.
Yeah. But then I go through and I show them a process on how to validate the backup. And
Yeah.
here you go. And I'm using DBA tools and I'm using our module and I'm using the backup. Here you go. Here's how you prove that it works.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not testing your backups, what you've just done is set up a resume generating event.
Yeah.
Yes.
At some point in time, it will catch up to you, and it's not just you. It literally could mean the
Mhm.
difference between a business failing and staying in business. It's a massive deal.
I remember hearing this story about a bank that was, they had a major failure. They luckily had no mention of testing restores, but they luckily had good restores. But it took them like 3 days to restore everything. Business couldn't absorb that, and the bank went under.
Yep.
And
I think
so,
that was Paul Randall and Kimberly Tripp telling that one. I remember them saying that in one of the SQL skills.
yes,
events.
yeah, I believe so. That must
Yeah.
have been where I heard that.
Yep. Yeah, scary stuff. Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
recoverable, but it takes a year to restore, who cares? Your
Yeah.
business is folded at that point.
Yeah, I don't want to see anybody lose their business, lose their job. I said, I look at it as my role is to help them keep those things.
That's the bottom line. That's the role of the DBA right there, is to protect the data at all costs. Speed is a very close second, but if it's down, it's not fast. Well, cool. Wait, thank you very much. I don't see any questions in the chat window here.
I got one more question.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Sorry. There's more of a question for everybody here, not specific to the presentation, but has anyone else had the experience of being a responsible DBA and running your integrity checks and everything else, and then hearing from system admins or storage admins saying, "Hey, why are you saturating the storage device for an hour and a half when you're doing these things? And what can you do to not saturate the IO while you're running?"
I have that conversation with people almost every single week.
Oh,
And
cool.
and my response is generally, we have to do backups. I'll do my best to stagger them so that we saturate less in aggregate. But quite frankly, if your storage can't keep up with my backups, we need to address the root of the problem, which is the storage speed, and not necessarily the fact that I'm doing my job.
Okay. Yeah, that's along the lines what I've been trying to say to folks. I could be irresponsible and not do integrity checks and things like that.
No.
But
No, I mean, literally irresponsible would be kicking off an integrity check and index maintenance on 1,000 databases at the exact same point in time every night.
oh, so you saw my previous job.
I mean, realistically, as long as you distribute the whatever evening tasks you need to do, backups, integrity checks, index maintenance, whatever, as long as you distribute them fairly evenly across the time span that is allowed for each of those databases, their backend platforms should be able to accommodate that. If the act of you doing your job is hurting other things or getting reports of saturation, they need to fix the bottleneck there, because it's not like you're going to say, "Yep, I'm going to slow my backup down just to make you happy." I'm not going to do that.
yes, that was relatively recent thing that came up, and I said, "Look, I have to do these things because that's the right thing to do." And even when they're staggered, it's hitting the thresholds that they set in the monitoring tools of number of IOPS per second.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not going to make these things run slower just to stay under some number that you picked.
We'll do this. And if it would help, no strings attached, no marketing. If an outside person says it, it might carry a different level of weight. So if I could jump on the phone with you and them and just talk through it, again, no marketing, no strings attached, I'd love to help.
Yeah, part of it also is that we need to do a better job of organizing our storage and get the production SQL boxes on one storage appliance and have the VMware Horizon VMs on a different storage device, so that people's desktops aren't being impacted while I'm running CheckDBs.
Well, again, if the storage is capable of handling integrity checks, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, and I'm not going to discount the possibility that something isn't configured quite right. Because I mean, it's pure storage, so it should be able to handle this.
I can tell you point blank it does.
Yeah.
But I can also tell you that depending on the physical machine or the interconnects connecting them, there are at least 5 different layers of bottlenecking in line with all of that that can get saturated well before the pure array is ever involved.
Okay.
So again, I'd be happy to jump on a call, again, no marketing or anything, and literally talk through those layers and just say, look, if this is this case, if this is default, that needs to get fixed. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. And bottom line, you can probably squeeze out about double the performance out of that pure array with breaking nothing.
Wow, that would be. Yeah, I haven't been looking. They haven't said anything to me recently about it. This was a few weeks ago, and I think people are starting to understand that, okay, well, we're going to do these things because they're the right thing to do, and you know, we'll accept that. But
yeah, just I message you my my email if it can help. And again, this is not an upsell. I don't do that. If it would help, quite literally, I've been working with Pure for a long time. Same thing with all the major hardware vendors and all the hypervisors out there. They're tuning opportunities for default settings all over the place that are kind of like you bought a Ferrari, that's your Pure array, and it came with square tires. That's your interconnects. And that's the default in all this stuff. So VMware, Hyper-V, you know, AHV, KVM, all these things, they have really low defaults on there. And if people don't tune them, yeah, it's just like you bought the Italian supercar with square tires, one gallon gas tank, and only first gear. Looks pretty. It ain't going fast though.
I was thinking more along the lines of Ferrari and how they're doing in F1 this year.
I make a lot of fun analogies. The Ferraris are pretty. Square tires, it's a rough ride, and you're not going fast. Yeah, and what's interesting is a lot of times infrastructure people will look at the telemetry at that layer of the infrastructure stack and say everything's fine. And then you look at it from yours and everything's terrible. There's all these layers in between that nobody's looking at. And it's fun because most of the time the arguments are I'm right, you're wrong. In most cases, everybody's right. There's just more to it.
Yep.
So it gets interesting. So if I can help, let me know. Again, no strings attached, no anything. That goes for everybody on the recording and live here. You know, part of what I do consulting wise is infrastructure and hardware and databases and how they generally don't play well together. So if I can lend a tip or two here or there to help out, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, I will. If it comes back up and people are really pushing, I will definitely drop you a line. Thanks, David.
Sounds good. You're welcome. Sorry, Joe, to interject there.
Oh,
That's literally the sweet spot of my consulting right there.
Oh, that's quite all right. This is I learned more things from these like just conversations that just come up. It's like, oh, I just start listening.
So much fun.
Oh, it is. That's what makes these forums just so valuable. I think it's the stuff you didn't set out to learn. It's all the other little things that you pick up on.
Exactly. And here or there in this group, we do open Q&A sessions, and they're a riot. They're a lot of fun. We laugh a lot, we learn a lot, and we have a lot of fun with this stuff.
Yeah, as it should be.
Exactly. Yeah. We all have high stress or high stress, high pressure jobs. If we didn't laugh a lot, we'd all probably crash. So gotta laugh a lot.
Oh, you need a sense of humor.
Exactly. Well, awesome. Well, hey, thank you very, very much. We really appreciate the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and kill the recording now. And thank you all for watching if you're watching after the fact and in person.
Oh, thank you all very much.